Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavina Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Ganga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bodhreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Before reciting this, we did that already. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 26th day of June 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the fourth canto entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 14, the story of King Vena. Text number 14. Munaya uchuhu Nripavaya nabodhaitad yatte vingyapayama bhoho ayushim balakirtanam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchu Nripavaya nabodhaitad yatte vingyapayama bhoho ayushi balakirtanam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchu Nripavaya nabodhaitad yatte vigyapayama bhoho ayukshi balakirtanam. And you're right, kirtanam. Ayushi balakirtinam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchuhu yatte vigyapayama bhoho ayushi balakirtinam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchuhu Nripavaya nabodhaitad te vigyapayama bhoho ayushi balakirtinam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchuhu Nripavaya nabodhaitad yatte vigyapayama bhoho ayushi balakirtinam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchuhu Nripavaya nabodhaitad yatte vigyapayama bhoho ayushi balakirtinam tabatat vivardhanam Munaya uchuhu. The great sages said, Nripavaya, O best of the kings, Nabodha, kindly try to understand. Etat, this, yat, which, te, to you, vigyapayama, we shall instruct. Bhoho, O king, ayuhu, duration of life, shri, opulences, bala, strength, kirtinam, good reputation, tava, your, tata, dear son, vivardhanam, which will increase. Translation: the great sages said, Dear king, we have come to give you good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase. Please repeat. The great sages said, Dear king, we have come to give you good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, in a monarchy, the king is advised by saintly persons and sages. By taking their advice, he can become the greatest executive power, and everyone in his kingdom will be happy, peaceful, and prosperous. The great kings were very responsible in taking the instructions given by great saintly personalities. The kings used to accept the instructions given by great sages like Parashara, Vyasadeva, Narada, Devala, and Asita. In other words, they would first accept the authority of saintly persons and then execute their monarchical power. Unfortunately, in the present age of Kali, the head of government does not follow the instructions given by the saintly persons. Therefore, neither the citizens nor the men of government are very happy. Their duration of life is shortened, and almost everyone is wretched and bereft of bodily strength and spiritual power. If citizens want to be happy and prosperous in this democratic age, they should not elect rascals and fools who have no respect for saintly persons. All right, we're going to take a little time out here. I'm sorry. Somehow I've developed a little cold. I think it's time for me to put this back on. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Now it's time to chant Hare Krishna. Bhakti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Okay. All right. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Takshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is the last ditch effort of the sages to save Vena from his kind of intrinsic character. You know, he has some bad blood on his mother's side, and he's completely incorrigible. There's no, he's pretending to be God. He's stopped all the Vedic sacrifices. He's generally a negative influence on his kingdom. But in those days, there were the sages and saintly persons, as Prabhupada would said, the Brahmins, those who were wise in the Dharma, real Vedic Dharma. And so their responsibility is to advise the executive heads. This is the way things are supposed to work. You have the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, the social orders, and according to one's propensity and birth, but mostly propensity, qualities and activities, one fits into one of those categories. The most important is the Brahmins. They're the head, the brain of society. They're meant to have rabbinical qualities. The problem is when they're born in Brahmin families, but they don't manifest those qualities, like as we have today, then you have havoc in society. But this is an ancient tale here, and all the Brahmins and saints really did have those qualities. Unfortunately, the king, Vena, who you remember how it came about, his father, Anga, was a good king, but somehow there was some bad influence coming in from his mother's side. And he became completely demonic, even as a child. I wasn't here when you read that, but I think you read it while I was away. He would, play with his friends and then actually kill them. Instead of playing at killing them, he would actually kill them. And he was incorrigible. So one day, Anga, just in the middle of the night, he just left. He took sannyas without telling anybody. And that wasn't good, because then there's no executive head, and so you have all the dacoits and the thieves coming out and tormenting the citizenry. So they said, okay, well, Vena is better than nothing. So they put him in charge. They said maybe he'll grow into it, just like they thought that our present president would grow into the position. But he didn't change. He stayed the way he is. So the dacoits were afraid of him because he was very severe. But he was thinking he's God. I remember growing up, we heard about the divine right of kings. They're meant to be representatives of God on earth. But they became completely degraded in the Middle Ages and after that, and so monarchy was ended eventually, except in one or two places in the Middle East. But that's the idea, is that the king is supposed to be a representative of God. There's even a word, I forget what it's called, it's mentioned in the first canto, but it means king God. In other words, the king who is representing God. But here we see a symptom of, it's not Kali Yuga, but this is what happens in Kali Yuga. The kings become completely corrupt. But the Brahmins become completely corrupt also. Here you have a group of saintly sages who are going to save the day. But they're trying first to give good advice. And they tempt him. They say, if you follow the good advice, you'll get everything you want. Long duration of life, opulence, strength, reputation. They're not saying you go back to Godhead. They'll say that, they're trying to give him something that induce him to actually follow the proper Dharma. But you'll see in a few verses, he's completely incorrigible, and he says, no, I'm God. You should worship me. Brahma, Shiva, they're all worshiping me. He's completely deluded. And so they'll chant the word hum. And by chanting it in a certain way, they end his life. It's some mystic power, like a tantric thing. But before that, they're going to describe what the advantages are if the king actually does follow Dharma. And Prabhupada will refer to the 12th canto. And I wanted to read that. There's a whole description there, a prediction of what will happen in Kali Yuga. And it's one of those passages that just increases your faith in the Bhagavatam, because it's practically word for word. Prabhupada likes to recall there's one thing with Labanya Keshadaranam, which is a prediction that men will think that wearing long hairs is very beautiful. Now, in various times in history, men had long hair, but it wasn't current in India at the time that he was, And so he came to America, and there was the hippie era when all the men were letting their hair grow. I even had long hair, believe it or not, at one point, down to my shoulders. I never got the beard thing. But so Prabhupada said, confirmed. You see? Bhagavatam is confirmed. But there's more than that. I wanted to read this one for you. Just one or two verses that Prabhupada will refer to in a couple of verses. He'll refer to this verse. So it says here, this is texts 39 and 40 coming up in this chapter. No, in the 12th canto, I'm sorry. This is 12, 1, 39 to 40. The title of this chapter is called The Age of Deterioration. In other words, Kali Yuga. So you tell me if you recognize this description of what's going on. These barbarians in the guise of kings will devour the citizenry. Well, we haven't got that yet, although there was one named Idi Amin back in the 70s. You may not remember. He was kind of a despot. He said to have done that. He didn't do it publicly. Anyway, we'll leave that part. Murdering innocent women, children, cows, and Brahmins, coveting the wives and property of other men. They will be erratic in their moods, have little strength of character, and be very short-lived. Indeed, not purified by any Vedic rituals and lacking in the practice of regulative principles, they will be completely covered by the modes of passion and ignorance. So that pretty well describes most of the leaders today, more or less. So what happens in such a case? So the people suffer because you need good guidance. The kings are meant to enforce actual Dharma. And inevitably, due to the modes of nature in every age, there's some deviation that happens. Even in Maharaj Parikshit's day, in the first canto, the whole Bhagavatam begins with him kind of holding back the forces of Kali. You remember, he was the last descendant of the Pandavas. He was the son of Abhimanyu, who was killed viciously during the war. And there was only the Pandavas were too old to have any further issue, and so there was only one chance, and that was the son of Uttara, who was the wife of Abhimanyu. Is that who? Yeah, And so so Ashvatthama, you remember who he was? This is a perfect example of how the Brahmins became corrupt. He was a Brahmin. He was the son of Dronacharya, who was a Brahmin, although he knew the art Dhanurjagya, the Dhanurveda, the art of war, and he taught that to Arjuna. But he was a Brahmin, and so was his son. And he was also skilled in the martial arts. So he thought, so think about this. The Mahabharata war was fought. It began under the Vedic codes. You remember that, where they would fight during the day, and in the evening, when the conch shell blew, the sun went down, they would become friends. They would have dinner together, the members of the opposite side. And they would praise, "Oh, you did very well. You were shooting the arrow so nicely. Very heroic, very good." And then they'd take rest, and then the next day the conch blow, and they're at it again. Trying to kill each other. So there were rules and regulations. That's the point. But by the time the war ended, it was all out the window. Who was it who was shot when his chariot got in the mud? Was it Karna? I think Karna was killed by Arjuna after he had to leave the chariot. But anyway, the thing is, they were observing these rules, but by the time it ended, there's Ashvatthama, who's after all a Brahmin that knows, and he's throwing this Brahmastra to kill the embryo in the womb of Uttara, because he wants to end the dynasty. In other words, a completely vicious idea. Plus, before that, they had killed the sleeping sons of Draupadi, wasn't it? The sleeping sons of Draupadi. There was another possibility of the dynasty living on. So you don't kill children, you don't kill anyone who's sleeping. The whole thing was out the window. You see? So practically Kali Yuga came in at that point when the whole Mahabharata war started. So this is what we face today: is that without Varnashram, nobody knows, nobody cares about these regulations. There's havoc in society. Nobody's satisfied. You have for instance, you can keep up on the news. Everybody's aware of this opioid holocaust that's happened in the last 10, 20 years, right? So it turns out that there was one family who was running one company, I'm not going to name them, who invented this OxyContin thing. OxyContin simply means constant oxycodone. That's what OxyContin means. It's a trade name. But they came up with this idea of having it released over time, and supposedly, rather than just a shot of opioids, to kill the pain. And then you have to take another one, you get addicted. So they thought, well, we're going to market this as non-addictive because it gives you a little bit just to kill the pain, But big deal. So they have these little pills there's a pill with little pills in it. I don't know if you have. I've never taken it, but that's how they do it. It's time release. So those who got addicted or wanted to get addicted or wanted to get a cheap high, they just opened the pills and crushed it all up and took it at once. And so it became. They're marketing it. It's prescribing. You have the doctors marketing it, but it is being used to become addicted to it, and people became addicted. But they would hide that research, and they kept it. They kept marketing, and people were dying of overdoses today. There's like a huge, like West Virginia, everybody knows somebody who's overdosed or like that. It's horrible. So the idea is it's supposed to be protected by the FDA, right? By the Food and Drug Administration. Why do you think we have a Food and Drug Administration? Because you had people abusing it and selling things the medicines that didn't work, they were not safe or effective. One of those two things. Maybe it's effective, but it's not safe. The side effect will kill you. Or maybe it's very safe, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It has to have two things: safe and effective. That's what every medicine you'll see. That's what the whole thing is. So the FDA is supposed to make sure that people aren't selling those things because they were selling them. That's why they made the FDA, the Food and Drug. Plus the food has to be safe. You can imagine if there's no control. But meanwhile, there's so much money involved. The guys who run the FDA, they get paid off by the big agribusinesses, a few thousand or even $1 million to look the other way. And this is the situation we're in. And who suffers? The people in general. That's the praja. So if there's a good Brahminical class, they're very concerned about that. That's why we have the Bhagavatam. Because the great sages and saints got together, oh my God, look what's going to happen. They could see Kali Yuga's coming. Kali Yuga's coming. And so they performed the sacrifice at Naimisharanya, and eventually Shukadev came, spoke the Bhagavatam, which provides light for this age. What's that famous verse? Krishna Swadamo Pagade, Dharma Jnananibi Saha, Karon Nashta Dashamesha Purana Kodhanodita. This is the verse Bhadra Maharaj chants at the beginning of each class. There's various ones you can chant. So what does that mean? The question was, now that Krishna has returned to the Goloka, he's no longer on the planet, where does Dharma and Jnana reside? Who's going to protect religion and knowledge for the benefit of the people? And so the answer is this verse. Krishna Swadamo Pagade. Since Krishna has gone back to his Dhamma, taking with him Dharma and Jnana. In other words, he was religion and knowledge personified. He killed so many miscreants, reestablished Dharma, as he says in the 4th chapter. We've been reading it. That's why he comes. But now he's gone, so what do? So this Bhagavatam has arisen just like the sun to provide the light of real knowledge for this benighted population. So the whole thing is, there's this twofold aspect to Krishna consciousness. There's one where it's your personal development of bhakti, which is really why you become Krishna conscious, But you soon realize that when you advance in devotional service and you realize that you're feeling the benefits of it, that there's a responsibility to give it to others. Because we're all in the same boat here. We're all brothers and sisters. So that development of empathy, sympathy, compassion is part of what advancement means. So the great sages, they're full of that. So what can we do? What can we do? So they caused the manifestation of Bhagavatam, which Srila Prabhupada, with his great effort, brought to America and through America and the English throughout the whole world. When I was in Italy at this meeting, most of you know, but maybe not in detail, the fact that these books, and they're in various stages, let's say, of translation, but they're being translated into all different languages of the world. And the devotee who runs that operation in Europe, Brahma Muhurta, Mr. Harikesh started it, and built it up many years ago. But now for the last over 20 years, he's been overseeing the translators and the production in all different languages, designs of different books. He bought, a good couple of dozen books in different languages with, all kinds of the covers. It looks just like the Bhagavatam. You read it, whoa. What are those characters? It's Japanese, Chinese, that's some of the Ukrainian language or something. Imagine all the different languages of the world. So that's Krishna speaking. One of his characteristics, the 64 qualities, it's good to read those. Effort is speaking in different languages. He can speak to the animals, in Vrindavan, he can speak to the gopis. They don't speak Sanskrit, they have like a dialect, Brijbash, there's a certain language, But he's also speaking the Bhagavad Gita translated into Ukrainian and Chinese and Japanese and everything else. He's speaking. So that's all by the effort of Srila Prabhupada and those who followed him and helped him. But the idea here is that there's always a struggle. There's a struggle. By the nature of material world is that it degrades. The modes of nature become more prominent. The human beings become more and more covered. And it's more and more difficult to practice genuine spiritual life. So this is still the beginning of Kali Yuga. And we have the great advantage of the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, and gave the easiest and most practical process for elevation. In other words, for coming out of the modes and coming onto the transcendental state, which is congregational chanting of the holy name. That's the essence. With that propagated, then there's a field for people to be interested in things like this, of the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, it would have just remained in the Sanskrit language. It would be thought of to be mythical. But here, it's like directly speaking to us. We can feel it, the danger, the anxiety that's caused by bad leadership in society. It's not that we, had good leadership, we had bad. Different degrees of bad leadership. But here it becomes so obvious
The whole world is in anxiety because of America, the most powerful country in the world, and who's leading? It's right out of the pages of Bhagavatam. So here, in this age, you had a strong Brahminical saintly core, and their solution is eventually, just eliminate Vena. He's causing so much trouble, and that we're incorrigible. You cannot correct him, even though he's getting this best advice. They're saying, kindly hear with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase. We've come to give you good advice. They're just openly telling him, but it cannot be accepted. But this mood of not wanting to take good advice is really part of what Maya is all about. Maya has convinced us that we know. I know what's in my best interest. I mean, I can tell. Nobody can tell me. This idea. Arjun, right? Because Arjun's a great devotee, but Krishna covered him at the beginning of the Gita. So he was arguing with Krishna. He spoke practically the whole first chapter, giving all kinds of reasons why he wouldn't fight. Well, he wouldn't do what ultimately he realized was the right thing to do. Right? Now, in Arjun's case, I mean, he wasn't manifesting these demonic qualities of here. But still, he was going off. Right? He was letting his emotions dictate to his intelligence. This is really what goes on in conditioned life, is that your feelings, your desires, your lower nature is dominating your higher nature. Remember the third chapter? The end of the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is so illustrative. Is that you have this nature, you have the higher nature, which is the spirit and your intelligence, and above them the super soul. But then you have your lower nature, the conditioned mind, and of course the senses. So the senses, we've come up through the species, so we have a lot of animalistic qualities. We're attached to sense gratification. We easily become angry if it's frustrated, right? All of these modes of nature, right? Passion and ignorance. So without any proper guidance, if the intelligence hasn't been informed by this knowledge, then the intelligence department is just figuring out how to fulfill the desires dictated by the mind, which is getting all of this input from the senses of what should I go after, what should I ignore, what should I avoid, the dualities of this world. And the higher self is being controlled by the lower self. There's this wonderful analogy. I think they still have that illustration in the Gita, right? I'd be honest with you, I forget. But the chariot going down the hill. There you got in the chariot's the body. You have the passenger who's like aghast because he's kind of, it's like dangerous. That's the soul. The driver is the intelligence, and the reins are the mind, and the 5 horses are the senses. So the 5 horses are out of control. You can't rein them in. They're dictating what you're supposed to do. Looks good to me, ice cream with bacon chips. Let's go for it. Sounds good. There's no reflection. Is it good for me? Is it offered? No, there's no question like that. It's just like, that's what I want. Go for it. And then of course there's a reaction. But we'll tolerate that and go for the next thing. So what kind of human life is that? It's practically animal life. So Krishna consciousness means to strengthen the intelligence. The intelligence is what's supposed to control the mind, the reins of the mind. They strengthen the intelligence by hearing this transcendental knowledge, pure knowledge. And the intelligence is strengthened and then becomes even stronger when you act on it. When you actually act on it and you say, no, senses, no, don't do that, do this. And the first part of it is the easiest thing of all. Just hear, come into the association, hear the holy name, and then chant it. You see, a lot of people come in, like on Sunday, they'll stand there and look at the deities, and maybe tap their feet a little bit. They won't chant. They're actually chanting, and loudly is a surrender. It's an act of faith. Otherwise you're the interested observer. I'm checking it out. There's benefit, undoubtedly, but there's various levels of how much benefit you can get according to your commitment. So it starts, with that simple act of just checking out the Hare Krishnas. That's why the Sunday feast was always such a big thing. Because if you know, the way it was, you'd work all day, you make these incredible preps, Prabhupada taught everyone how to cook. And it was irresistible. People would come just for that. But if you come just for that, you sit next to a devotee, you hear Hare Krishna, you may pick up a book. In other words, and then you say, well, what did I get this book for? Go back to it. But then the next week, wow, it's Sunday. I better go over to get some of that food they serve out. And again, and in this way, you may make a friend, someone who's really... So that was a genius stroke. It was actually Kirtananda's idea. He told Prabhupada, on Sunday people get together and have dinner, Sunday dinner, so we should do that. So the whole thing of the acharyas, they try, rack their brains. How can we inject this knowledge? How can we attract someone to just take part and begin to come out of the morass and the illusion that we've been in since time immemorial, for many, many births? So, but some people, it's impossible, and this Vena is one of them, and he's gotten himself into position as the king. And so it's very illustrative how dangerous it is to let these demons get a hold of so much power. They can create havoc in society, destroy the world. I mean, you have this insane situation where you get this guy, this man-child, who can push the button, get us into a war with Russia. I mean, the last election, I had my little joke about it. We had a choice, right? Do you know Krishna book? Some of the demons? Well, you probably know Putana. Everyone knows Putana. That was the first demon. But there's one later on, if you didn't read the whole book, called Paundraka. Paundraka was an imitation Vishnu. He had convinced himself he was Vishnu. And he had like two other fake arms, right? And he had, paper mache chakra and all this stuff. And so he challenged Krishna. So when Krishna heard the challenge, he sent a messenger. He laughed, and everyone else laughed. But the point was, he was a faker. He was a fraud. And Putana, of course, was just an out-and-out witch. She, of all the demons, I regard her as the most frightening and make your hair stand on it. Her business is killing babies and sucking their blood. What could be more, crazy than that and frightening? Anyway, so that was the election. Great choice. We had Putana. I'm not going to name names, but you know what I mean. And we had Paundraka. So this is what the citizens are facing in this world. The old rock and a hard place. In other words, there's no good choice. And they become victimized. But at that point, I was thinking that Paundraka was better, because Putana, she'll have us in a war with Russia within 6 months, to prove that she's macho, or whatever, whatever crazy motive. The other guy, probably won't. But that's, such a pathetic choice. So the Krishna is concerned, the whole Bhagavatam is concerned, all the great saints and sages are concerned about the society, about the world, not just about their own spiritual advancement. And that line, that Bhagavat Marg, has come down to us. Lord Chaitanya is telling us, Yare Dekitara Krishna Upadesh, that whoever you meet, whoever you see, tell them about Krishna, and on my order you become a spiritual master and save this country. This was his instruction to, was it Kurma Brahman? Yeah. And so that preaching mood has come down to us. That's part of the inheritance. And really they go together. You can't really become advanced without some preaching element to your spiritual life, trying to give it to others. Because part of the realization is that we're all in this together, that we're part of, we're all part and parcel of Krishna. We're all God sister, God brother, And we should feel, oh, that poor person. If I don't give him a book, if I don't somehow, remind him of Krishna, then what's their future going to be? They're walking straight into hellish existence. The only hope is Krishna consciousness. Now, in the present world, there's like this big gathering cloud of doom that's entering into everyone's mind. And so, should I even have children? How is that going to work? You know, by 2020, they say we could have gone beyond the point of no return with this climate change thing. And it's happening everywhere. There's huge storms, you know, heat wave in Europe is going to kill people, 100 degrees for days on end. It's already happening. But it's like the traditional elephant in the room. I'll tell you something you may not know. My brother, who's 76 years old now, he writes a column for one of these lefty sites that I visit all the time. Every so often he writes a column and I read it. Michael Doliner. He's still writing his stuff. So I check it out, you know. So the last column was about the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room, the whole idea is that there's a huge issue here that we're not dealing with, and we're all just doing all this trivial stuff. That's what the elephant in the room analogy means, you know. We're not dealing with what's really important. I mean, human conditioned life is like that. I mean, so much of Prabhupada's preaching was trying to wake us up to our actual condition. Hello, you know, birth, old age, disease, and death. It's all temporary. Whatever effort you put into material life is all going to be swept away. Your actual problem is, he's just quoting Krishna, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshan. That part of knowledge is understanding how temporary this life is, and that is fraught with inevitable suffering. So then the next question is there a way out of this life? Or is that just the way it is? Most people think, well, that's just the way it is, and we'll try to ignore it, and we'll be entertained, and, you know, somehow. Yeah, we know about that, but, you know. In other words, the elephant in the room. They're ignoring the elephant in the room. The actual problem of human life, and absorbing themselves in trivialities. So taking human life seriously, understanding the mission, and that there is a way to solve the problems. You know, of course we're all going to have to get old and disease and die one more time, unless we take the option of premature death. Those are your two options. You know, but either way, it's going to happen. But how you face those problems, what your consciousness is at that time, is everything. Consciousness is everything. The whole universe is created by consciousness, the supreme consciousness. The matter comes from consciousness, not the other way around. Matter is a derivative from the state of consciousness. Your next life, and even in this life, will be determined by how, you know, where you place your intelligence and what you do with it. So that urgent message is pertinent to everybody, every human being on this planet. The lower animals they can't understand, but human beings have the intelligence. So that's our external mission. I always like to point out at the very beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you find the Mangalacharan. There's a series of verses that introduce the book, the subject of the book. What's the subject of the book? Lord Chaitanya, you know, but also Nityananda, Advaita, the Panchatattva, they're all in there. And ultimately Radha Krishna. They're all part of this Mangalacharan. It's very instructive. The whole book is really an expansion on those verses. And there it describes Lord Chaitanya, who he is, Yadadvaitam Brahmo Panasari Tadapyasatanubha. You know, that he is Krishna himself. The Brahman effulgence is his bodily effulgence. The super soul is his expansion, and he is Bhagavan. You know, that's essential for all Gaudiya Vaishnavas to understand. That's, you know, central. But then it describes why he came to earth. Twofold reasons. Twofold reason. He had his external reason and his internal reason. Both are extremely important. The first one described as the external reason, to spread the Sankirtan movement. Anarpita chadim chadat karunayavatirna kalau samabhihitamannato jvaradasam sabhakti shriyam hari purata sundara jitikadhamma sandipita sadavadiya khamnades purata vakshachi nandana. This is a verse at the beginning of the Dagdamadava glorifying Lord Chaitanya. The Dagdamadava is written by Rupa Goswami. And he's saying, may that Supreme Lord, known as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, be forever situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the hue of molten gold, he's appeared in this age of Kali after a long time to bestow what no other incarnation has ever given before. The most exalted mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. He came to give it to others, you see. And there's another verse describing, and then there's several verses describing its internal reason. The internal reason is simple, is that, although it's very esoteric, but it's fairly easy to understand on one level. It's described, Krishna is in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, in Dwarka, Puri part. And he sees himself in a mirror-like part of a pillar, you know. He sees his own beauty, becomes attracted to his own beauty. Says, who is that person that's so beautiful? You know, I want to understand that beauty, but I can't understand it from my point of view. So the only way I can really understand it fully is to take the role of Srimati Radharani. So for three reasons. He wanted to understand the glory of Srimati Radharani's love for him, and his own qualities, beauty and attractiveness from her point of view, seen through the lens of her unlimited love. And she wanted to understand the happiness, the bliss that she felt, loving him and being loved by him. All three of those are impossible to experience as Krishna. So therefore, Krishna takes on the hue and the mood of Srimati Radharani as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he propagated devotional service, but also he spent many years just relishing that mood of separation from himself in Puri and separation meeting, and it's a very esoteric thing. So we also are meant to have that. We have our own desires to advance in devotional service. We're sitting here chanting japa. That's a personal thing. It's essential. It's important. You know. So the whole morning program is kind of in that mood. You know, how can we become more fixed, learn more about Krishna, and, you know, refine our devotional service? And we should have that aspiration. We want to advance. But at the same time, we have to take on, you know, to imbibe the mood of all of our acharyas, going back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to give it to others for their own benefit. And that's why we're sitting here, because Srila Prabhupada had that burning desire. So part of that is understanding the role that this knowledge plays and is meant to play in society. Is that, you know, because after all, you know, we're part of the human society, and we should be concerned when there's so much suffering and so much ignorance. The suffering is produced by the ignorance. The real knowledge, when people understand it, can mitigate the suffering. But ignorance produces sin, and sin produces suffering. This is in the nectar of devotion. So it's a great mission we're on, and here it's such a lesson from this Vena, you know, that the kings who are arrogant, egotistical, and malignant narcissists, you know, this creates havoc in society. So the only solution is Krishna consciousness, and even if, you know, we try our best and things seem to be worsening, still, you know, we'll go out, you know, the seas will be rising, or the sun will be blazing, or the nuclear bomb is exploding. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's always a solution, personally. Otherwise, there's no solution. There's no answer to it. The only answer is ignore the elephant in the room, you know. We'll go about our business. But that's the answer of the rabbit sticking his head in the sand when the lion's coming at him, the ostrich. That's no answer at all. But really, if we're strong in Krishna consciousness, we can, you know, face these difficulties and remain, you know, holding on to Krishna's lotus feet. Otherwise, padam padam yad padam natesham. Those who know this verse, we can chant together. Samashitaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam bunhyasho marare pavambude vatsapadam param padam 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 yad padam natesham. It's a really important verse. You've heard it before. We should have a verse learning section. Anyway, those who have taken complete shelter of the lotus feet of Murari, samashitaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam, which is the place where all the Mahatmas rest and the place where the Mahatattva rests. It's the foundation of the whole universe, Krishna's lotus feet. Punya yasho murare. Punya yasha means just by glorifying him, you get pious credits. You know, how glorious that is. So what's the result of taking that shelter? Bhavambudir vatsapadam. Balaram, what does that mean? Bhavambudir vatsapadam. Yeah, the water in the calf's footprint. So that, what is Bavambu deer? Birth and death, yeah, material existence. So the ocean of material existence shrinks down to the water in a calf's hoofprint, not even a cow, a calf, small. In other words, you can easily cross over it. Bhagawatsaptaha param padam. One goes to the supreme abode. One is it's transcended. Not for them is this place, which is padam padam yad vibadam, a place where there's danger, vibadam, at every step, padam padam. There's danger at every step here. I mean, we know that. So that's our only shelter, is we should hang on tightly to Krishna's lotus feet, and the best way to do it is always chant Hare Krishna. Any discussion on these points? I'm sorry I went way over time. Okay, so you have something. Go ahead.
We were speaking about the purpose or the reasons behind Lord Chaitanya's advent. And you had given the pastime where Krishna sees himself within he sees the reflection. He wants to experience Srimati Radharani's love. But if Lord Chaitanya is eternal and is God, how do we make sense of this? Because this pastime happened during Krishna's Leela on earth. So how do we make sense of that being the cause of his advent, and him being eternally existing as God?
Well, Krishna's pastimes in Goloka are always eternally going on, right? But at the same time, there's a cyclical element to it, meaning that what does it mean to say that there's no past? Probably the past, present, and future. But let's just go with past and future. There's no past and future in the spiritual world. And yet things happen there. Otherwise, why would they call them pastimes? If the time isn't passing, why call them pastimes? So the idea is that we have to kind of break out of this limits of time and space that we have, due to our conditioned life. Yes, Lord Chaitanya has his place in the spiritual world. Prabhupada said there's a place in there where the Sankirtan is going on eternally, But of course, everybody is in the mood of the separation. The Sankirtan Lord Chaitanya showed in Puri, this mood of separation from Krishna, bringing him back to Vrindavan, or that he showed for all those years, when he felt separation, and was, associating with the Ramananda Roy Sudamodar. That's also cyclical. In other words, it will come around another day of Brahma, in which Lord Chaitanya, Krishna will appear as Lord Chaitanya and teach especially the Sankirtan movement. And it's been coming around and around and around since time immemorial. So the fact that Lord Chaitanya has a place in the spiritual world where he's always enjoying Sankirtan doesn't mean that he can also not manifest here. Just as Krishna, when he comes 5,000 years ago, engages all those pastimes, it's not that the Goloka Vrindavan is vacant. He just expands. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam. So Lord Chaitanya is eternally enjoying the mellows of the Sankirtan with his intimate devotees in that corner of Goloka Vrindavan. Prabhupada says the place there. But at the same time, he periodically manifests, not just on this earth, but there's so many universes where the time comes, once in a day of Brahma will appear. You can keep that pastime of him seeing himself and in the mirror. That can also be periodical. I don't see any problem with it. It's just because we're bound by this happened, then that happened after that. But then when you get into the higher things, it's happening simultaneously. It's all going on at the same time. I mean, the thing that really blows my mind and really kind of makes you like in the Buddhist thing, they have the koans, where like it's impossible, therefore it's kind of meant to expand your, one hand clapping thing. So Prabhupada explained in a letter, an essay really, how we fell from the spiritual world. And so he says, formerly we were with Krishna in his Leela or sport. But we forget. We somehow turn away from Krishna, and we become attracted to Maya, to this material energy. And then we go through a series of births. It can go on and on for how many births of Brahma, trying to be this, being that, all these different identities we've been through and everything, human and otherwise. But it's all like a big dream. And when we finally wake up in Krishna consciousness and we go back home, back to Godhead, it's just like waking up after nodding off for an instant. In other words, all those billions of years shrink down to nothing because there's no real time in the spiritual world. And so that's what it means. Falling from the spiritual really means falling asleep and dreaming all of these lives in the material world. And that's Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam. Oh, my dear son of Nanda, I've fallen into this horrible ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up and make me as an atom of your lotus feet. Reinstate me in my original position. So what are you going to do with the time factor there? Some people say, no, we never fell from the spiritual world. In one sense, they're correct. We're still there. We're just dreaming that we're in this material world. So that's why the Shastra says, Uttishta jagrata prabhavarana bodhata. Get up, wake up, sleeping soul. That's the song, right? Wake up, sleeping soul, and understand the great value you have in the human form of life, and use it to, realize these mysterious truths. I'll have to end on that. But let me just end on one sweet thing. This funny verse about Brahma. I don't know if you heard it yet. About Brahma hearing the flute. Okay, maybe some of you heard it, but I don't think you heard it. From Vidagdha Madhava. Ashtabhi shutipatakaina bhavayana vakakalin kalayan. Shataditapitita mukto malada prishte muhur lutati. Lord Brahma is the gravest soul, supremely self-controlled, an ocean of composure. He's a wonder to behold. But when he hears Govinda's flute produce its maddening sound, he loses it, and on his swan he starts to roll around. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanandi Hare. Huh? It's new to you. All glories to Prabhupada.